Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and I'm always honored when we have time to sit down with our good friend John O'Connor. John is a former federal prosecutor. He's an experienced trial lawyer, author of several books, Postgate, and that is how the Washington Post betrayed Deep Throat and covered up Watergate and what became today's partisan advocacy journalism, which we certainly know is the case. He's also served as a assistant U.S. attorney in Northern California, representing the United States in both criminal and civil cases. There's a picture of the book. He does have a website, postgatebook.com, and that's where you can get another sequel to the book, and that is The Mysteries of Watergate. Why are these important? Well, you wonder why the press went the way it is today. Well, this is the genesis of it, and you can check it out at postgatebook.com. Brother John, good to see you, friend. How are you, bud?
Good to be with you, Perry.
Thank you for your time, as always. We value it greatly. I want to back up just for a moment. Apparently, the Supreme Court today is looking at cases of rogue judges. Do you think that the judiciary, this is kind of a 30,000-foot question here, do you think the judiciary integrity is in question?
I don't know if it's integrity. I think some would see it that way, but certainly I suppose everyone in government lusts for power for his or her own branch. Mm-hmm. And I think they've just gotten over their skis with their sort of a power mad type of thing. I don't think they view it that way. But that's what's happened. Call it what you will. I call it power lust. They don't understand that. Many people that are in the judiciary feel that it's their sworn duty to make sure everything is perfect and that the world revolves around the way they look at it. But they really misconstrue their roles, and that's what's really gotten out of hand here.
All right. So. Is it true that the authority and the area of influence of a district court is described by Congress, but the cases, if they are appealed, just the case itself is a Supreme Court issue? That's where the divide is?
And I'm not sure that what you're asking here.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can verify. I mean, most of these cases coming out of these district courts trying to stop the president from doing something, the merit of the case itself is a legal issue that could be appealed to the Supreme Court. But the authority of reaching outside the district and into the branch of government of the executive to stop the president, is that authority given by Congress, or could be ruled back by the Supreme Court?
Well, both. I mean, the district courts are creatures of Congress. The Constitution doesn't say anything about these subsidiary judges. It does talk about the Supreme Court. And even that, the number of Supreme Court justices is controlled by Congress. Congress should, let's put it this way. Congress can, I suppose, further clarify their jurisdiction when you have a judge sitting in Boise, Idaho. Should he try to, number one, confine his rulings to cases and controversies in front of that judge, and not broad statements of law that might apply beyond the case at hand, either to other parts of the country or to future controversies as they may arise. So, I mean, what I would say is these courts have the power that's given to them by the legislature. Mm-hmm. And that power should be circumscribed by the Supreme Court. In other words, if these guys are getting out over their skis and there are too many nationwide injunctions, which is the real issue here, is some judge setting the policy for the entire country far beyond the case and controversy in front of the judge. I would hope that the Supreme Court, because it has, in essence, sort of a supervisory control over these lower judges, they should be setting out rules of or guidelines, I suppose, as to how these folks should act, failing which they will be slapped down on appeal. That's the real sanction that these judges have, is to get slapped down on appeal. So uh, the Supreme Court would set rules. They normally would be enforced by the various appellate courts around, like the Ninth Circuit, 10th Circuit, and so forth, who in turn control the district court judges. So what we're looking for here is broad guidelines from the Supreme Court to tell its circuit courts how to police the fellows at the district court. And that's the problem. Nobody's doing any policing here. Everybody loves to be a big shot. We all like to be big shots, I guess. And then you'll have a judge with his picture in the paper about how he's slapping down the leader of the free world. And boy, nobody messes with him. That's what it's just human nature. People like to see that. People like to be on the front page of the paper, and especially in these political times. So something's got to be done. And the Supreme Court has power. And to answer your question, Supreme Court has power, and also the legislature has power. They can, by law, come in and start restricting these fellows more than they are doing now.
So you have the Supreme, you have the circuit, and you have the district. Doesn't the term district suggest a boundary?
Well, yes. You're only supposed to deal with things within your boundary. That's called venue. And it's one thing to say that the law of the land has been violated. It's another thing to say that you have venue yourself to decide that. If it's outside your venue, you shouldn't be deciding it. So, for example, recently, when Judge Boasberg decided that issue on the arrest of these immigrants, the real venue should have been in Texas, where the fellows were picked up, where they were arrested. And it's really what the Supreme Court said was, this is really a habeas corpus action, and habeas corpus, you have to file it in the place where the people were arrested, and you're trying to challenge that arrest. The plaintiffs, and that's another thing we've got, Perry. We've got these games that are being played where clever lawyers say, I don't want to go to Texas. I don't like the lawyers down there, or the judges down there. I'm going to figure out some way to say that venue is proper in Washington, D.C., where I have all these liberal judges who think like I do. In this case, they used a particular law that wasn't habeas corpus. It was the Administrative Procedures Act, and said, hey, we're challenging the proclamation under which these folks were arrested, not the arrests themselves. And so if we challenge the proclamation, then, of course, the arrests are invalid. So we can get, and it's the game playing. We should be down in Texas, but we're going to go to D.C., figure out a way to go to D.C. We get a favorable judge, Judge Boasberg, who, by the way, is a prince of a guy. The people I know, he's a nice guy, played basketball at Yale. Everybody likes him. But he gets the case. And so that's the game that's being played. The plaintiffs' lawyers loved it, and the Supreme Court slapped them down a little bit. But those are the battles we've got right now.
So it's obvious, John, that these injunctions are politically motivated. And it appears to me that America is beginning to see this for what it really is. And that goes back to the Supreme Court. At what point to say enough is enough here? We got to stop this nonsense. And that brings into question that I need to go to law school so I can keep up with you. What is the role of the Chief Justice?
Well, it's something of a ceremonial role, really. He really does have sort of an administrative power over the other judges in his court, but each judge has his own vote. There was a judge here that I loved in San Francisco that used to talk about the chief judge. We have a chief judge in each district, and that judge used to say that, to me, the chief judge is the guy I go to get my pencil sharpened. I'm making my own decisions. He has no control over me. And so, to a certain degree, John Roberts has no control over Sonia Sotomayor. She can decide whatever she's going to decide. Now, he has sort of a moral authority. Um, he may have some administrative power as to who decides what and when, uh, but his power is somewhat limited, really.
Can he control? And the reason I'm bringing this up, one of the headlines coming out this morning, I'm trying to digest it, that apparently he's trying to rein in a justice that keeps interrupting a case that's being heard. Does he have the power to say to that justice, knock it off, we want to hear this guy?
Yes, that's a good example of a power he does have. He is sort of in control. He's sort of the marshal as well as being a person who has a vote. Those are the sorts of things he really has authority over. And I don't know who he's talking about. I assume it must be Sotomayor, but it doesn't help the other judges when somebody keeps interrupting the argument, and the justices do not get the flow of the argument that's being made. Somebody decides they really come out for bear and want to really just skewer this guy, so she doesn't let him talk. I think it's Sotomayor he's talking about. But yeah, that's the kind of authority he does have. Um, again, a lot of that is sort of moral, but he's supposed to be the rule maker. He's supposed to be the guy that decides, when sessions are going to be held, and so forth and so.
Okay, good.
That is a good example of his power, Perry. It's very good.
All right, good. All right. So let me change your brain a little bit. Let's go to President Trump's Mideast tour. This is very, very interesting. Whoever thought he'd be going over talking commerce with all of these people? Do you see that there may be a net strategy by pulling in people, not only, you got Qatar, which is highly questionable. You got Saudi Arabia. He's going to go off into the Emirates and all of that. Pull these people into some kind of commerce deal. Is he really circling the wagons around Iran?
To some degree, yes. To some degree, and to a great degree, these Gulf Emirates and Saudi Arabia want to be circled. They want to be part of that. They're shaking in their boots over Iran, as is Israel. And so there's a real natural affinity between Israel on the one hand and these other states on the other, because Saudi Arabia is going to be toast if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. Qatar is a little different because they've been sort of they're half our ally and have a nice base for us there. At the same time, they support Hamas. So they've always been kind of the outlier of that region. If you recall, it was sometime around 2016, right as Trump was coming into office, the other Gulf Emirates and Saudi Arabia boycotted. They did embargoed, I suppose is the better word, Qatar, because they were supporting terrorism. And that's always been a little bit of a tension between all of them and Qatar. So, they're not the best of friends. The other Emirates aren't. And because Qatar has always been sort of off a little bit with a foot in the terrorist camp.
Yeah.
But I like to see this, Perry. I like to see this unity, and I like to see Qatar being culled from the herd. And what Trump is saying is, go with us, cut your ties from Hamas, and everything will be good for you. The United States will help you far more than we're helping you before. We love you. You're having a base for us, and we're going to reward you. But hey, let's kind of knock off the Hamas stuff. And that's what's going on there. That's a real important country. And if he can cut Qatar from the terrorist herd, now they're isolating Iran, and that's what they want to do. That's what he's doing with Syria. He's isolating Iran, trying to get Syria there, and now he's got Europe unified against Putin, and hopefully also, less importantly, against Iran. But something's got to be done there, and he's hoping, I think, that Iran will get the message and cut a deal. I'm not so sanguine about it. I mean, I think very bluntly, I think he's got to I think he's got to give the bunker busters to Israel and let Israel take out the facilities. This whole world will not work if Iran gets a weapon. It's just plain and simple. And if Trump wimps out like Obama did, I'm afraid our world is in trouble.
Okay, to that point, quickly before I take a break. So in some ways, this is a risky tour, but on the other hand, it is a fresh diplomatic tour, and it looks like it could work. And he's made very clear in all of his speeches that Iran can't get a nuke. Where Iran may come to the table, nobody believes that they'll do anything. So in the meantime, he's convinced the world, he's changed the Middle East, he's brought everybody together. If they have to go in or give the green light for Israel to go in, they did everything they can to avoid that, but it was unavoidable.
I think that's right. And I think the people here's what worries me, Perry. There are some doves in his. I think it's interesting. I'm on the Dove talking about this, but I think in this case, I think we've got to be hawkish. There's just no room for these folks to get a nuclear weapon. The world is toast if they get one.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that there are people out there, and I love J.D. Vance. I mean, he's a favorite of mine, but he's in the camp. He's kind of an isolationist, and others are. And I know when Walz gets pushed out, that's sort of he was the most hawkish guy in the inner circle. So some people don't like that sign that Walz gets pushed out. So we hope that Trump has it in his sights that he's not going to, when push comes to shove, and it will, push will come to shove here,
All right,
that he does something.
let me take a quick break. Postgatebook.com is John's website. Check it out. The Mysteries of Watergate and Postgate. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Always an honor to have with us John O'Connor, former federal prosecutor, trial lawyer, and of course he's also formerly an assistant U.S. attorney in Northern California. He has a website called postgatebook.com, and there is a couple of books that I think you'll find to be a fascinating read. They have a lot to do, which leads to what we call today advocacy journalism, and I want to get into that a little bit. But anyway, Mysteries of Watergate and Postgate. John, just back to something you said before we went on the break. You hated to see Walz get moved over to the UN. On the other hand, that's a good place to have a hawk, don't you think?
Well, it is. It's good for the face of the United States, and it's good to send out messages. And of course, the UN is, very much not a pro-American outfit these days, and you're going to find a lot of pro-Hamas stuff coming out. So it's good that he's there fighting. I would just rather have him in the inner circle.
Yeah.
With his vote, I trust him. I trust him that he would not. If there's going to be a deal cut with Iran, if there are going to be concessions, I would like him signing off on them, not somebody that signs off wishfully thinking. There's so much wishful thinking in these deals, and we've just let Iran go way too long. What Obama and Biden both did with Iran is sickening.
Okay, so in the meantime, Walt's former responsibilities have been temporarily put under Marco Rubio. Do you see him as a hawk?
Well, I see him as firm enough. Marco's a smart guy, and I like him, and I think he's very clear-eyed is what I would say. He's not like, he doesn't have particularly hawkish instincts, but he's also not, he's not a fool. That's mainly it. You've got to be a fool here, and this is what this is whose mama's raised fools. That's what it is.
Okay. Swinging you back to more domestic things, I've seen you on other shows, so just remember where you got your start. I'm just kidding, John.
You're my guy, Barry. My guy.
What do you think's happening to the media landscape out there these days?
They don't know whether to spit or go blind, really, because Trump has kind of like punctured their balloons. They're no longer in control. This is what I see. For since Watergate, the media has been in control, the legacy media, and we have Trump coming out and his first term and calling him fake news and getting in fights. But generally speaking, even then the media had him on his back foot, sort of in their conspiracy with his enemies in the government, like James Comey and so forth. But now it's a new day, and I think they realize now that they've got to come to terms with the guy, and they've got to treat him a little bit better. They're still, they're still not exactly Trump supporters, but it's very interesting. I think there's a realization here that they may be losing their authority that they had in the past. And you look at the viewership on CNN, especially. MSNBC is a little bit better, but I think they've got to come to Jesus now, and so to speak, and really be. And that doesn't mean that they should be bowing down to Trump. I'm not suggesting that. I think they should bow down to the truth, and that's what this whole thing is supposed to be about. And the media has just failed. And this Biden thing, this whole idea of ignoring Biden's um, condition, just shows what we've got here. We're supposed to have watchdogs, and they can't even tell us that the president of the United States is a drooling incompetent. They know it, and they don't report it, and it's just shameful. And they're getting exposed. So let's put it this way: their moral authority is very weak these days.
Okay, I think you've explained that extremely well. There's another part of the equation is maybe they're having a hard time believing that America elected Trump.
They still can't. This is what's interesting, Perry.
Yeah.
These folks cannot understand it. When you get to a place that is anti-Trump, and I live in one of them, or a university, or the East Coast elite, and so forth, these folks just are dumbfounded. They just don't know how anybody could ever vote for Trump. And of course, what they don't realize, and the people in the media don't realize, is one of Trump's strengths is that he stands up to the media. They know they've been fed nonsense for years and are sickened by it. And I'm talking about the media. They're upset at the media. So there are an awful lot of people that are attracted to Trump simply because he's not going to get cowed by these folks, because they're supposed to be there calling balls and strikes. But we've got an umpire, we've got a referee, whatever you want to call it, who's on the take. That's all there is. He's, if you were watching a basketball game and the referee after the game went out with the other team and, broke bread with them and then hung out with them and was their friends and so forth and so on, you'd say, wait a second, this guy's supposed to be impartial, and yet it seems like he's favoring this one side all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got here, and people understand that. And they don't understand, first of all, they don't understand why anybody would want to vote for Trump, putting aside the media.
Mm-hmm.
But it just shows their cluelessness, and it also shows how parochial they are. And it's really, really very sad commentary. One of the things, there are different ways to analyze it, but everyone in the media and everyone also on the Democratic side of things, most of them do not have to make a living the regular way.
Right.
They're either employed by government or by a university or what have you, or an NGO, or they're nice. I love school teachers. They're teachers covered by a union. They don't understand the way the world works. And the people who are Trump supporters understand the way the world works.
One last question, John. It goes back to the obvious, and that is we know that President Biden had cognitive problems. Now more and more is coming out, books being written, admissions being made, that he was in trouble the moment he went into office and the cover-up began. I think we're shocked that it was worse than we anticipated. Even his recent public appearances are so embarrassing, you wonder why the family would even let him out. And the DNC and other Democrats like to see him get off the national stage. But here's my question. It looks like it's his competency, his cognitive ability was so bad. Can any of his rulings be challenged?
No, I think that's the problem, is that no one acted. No one took the 25th Amendment is there for precisely this whole idea. And no one raised the issue at all. And it just shows you, I mean, it's completely corrupt. The media is corrupt, and the Democrats were corrupt in this thing. Everyone knew what was going on. And, during the 2020 election, Britt Hume said a couple of times, look, this fellow's clearly incompetent. Some days he may have good days, some days he may have bad days, but that's what happens when people are too old. And he was excoriated by the liberal media.
Yeah.
So this shows, I mean, this shows what a terrible problem this biased media is. It really, really is bad. You think about it. We have this Ukraine problem. How many millions of people are going to die because we had an incompetent president? Any competent president could have kept Putin from doing what he did. Just rattle some sabers, threaten some boots on the ground. But he didn't do that. He let him in. He waved him in. He also abandoned Afghanistan. That's very important. People forget about it. We gave up a tremendously strategic Air Force base, Bagram, which was wonderful, and it's situated ideally to be near Pakistan and India, near China, near Russia, and we've given that up. You think about it, and then of course in his administration with these pro-Iranian guys like this Rob Malley, who did untold damage by sidling up to the Iranians and then giving them money for all this bombing. So think about what he did. Forget about the inflation he induced. He was responsible for all this terrorist activity from the Houthis to Hamas. He's responsible for Putin invading Russia. He's responsible for Iran getting as strong as they are, which also helped the terrorists. So you think about everything the guy did, and it's all because we have a corrupted media who could not tell the truth.
Yeah.
And that's really, really what it boils down to. And it's a serious problem. And I like people talking about it now. We keep talking about it. It's a good thing.
All right, John, thank you. Always my time with you is too short. We value it greatly. Thank you, friend, for being there. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, postgatebook.com is John's website. You can check out both those books, postgatebook.com. God bless you, pal. Stay in the fight. We need you.
Okay, bud. Take care.